Right.
Yeah.
Good for now.
There's no idea.
He exited.
I don't know.
That video.
puzzled.
Puzzle?
Yes.
The older you get, the more puzzle.
I'm in deep trouble.
Both of us.
Call this meeting to order. Will you please stand for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mr. Lunder,
Here.
Mr. Johnson, Mr. Bittner,
Here.
Mr. Wolf, Mr. Shaboo,
Here.
Mr. Morris,
Here.
Mrs. Thompson.
Here. Approval of minutes. I'd like to make a correction on page 3 under the ordinance committee. It should be Renee Schaefer instead of Michelle Schaefer. Can I have a motion to make that correction?
So made. Second.
Motion made by Mr. Morris, seconded by Mr. Lunder. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lunder,
Aye.
Mr. Bittner.
Aye.
Mr. Shaboo,
Aye.
Mr. Morris,
Aye.
Mrs. Thompson.
Any other corrections?
Yeah, when anyone from council reads a letter into the minutes, I would like either of those letters be typed out in the minutes or a copy of that letter attached to the minutes when they receive it. Because the minutes from the last meeting just said that Mr. Shaboo read a letter from Kathy Darnell, but it doesn't state what that letter concerned. If I remember right. So it would be helpful if that letter could be attached to our minutes. That way Joyce doesn't have to type out all that stuff.
Anything else? Motion to approve?
So made. Seconded.
Motion made by Mr. Lunder, seconded by Mr. Morris. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lunder,
Aye.
Mr. Bittner,
Aye.
Mr. Shaboo,
Aye.
Mr. Morris,
Aye.
Mrs. Thompson.
Aye. Clerk, do we have any correspondence this evening?
I have no correspondence tonight, Madam President.
Mr. Morris?
Yeah, Mary Eva, Dorinda Myers on Sharon Drive asked, they took the park benches out from behind the service garage recently. Did they? Are they going back or did they get relocated?
They were repurposed and they come in part.
Gotcha.
Those benches face the former playground rotation and now they face the fence.
Okay,
So we,
thank you.
Anyone else with correspondence? Administrative and department head reports. Mayor and Safety Director, Mayor Eva, good evening.
Good evening, Mrs. Thompson, members of council, public here this evening. We have a new part-time dispatcher started on October 5th, Kristen Story. She will be sworn in this Thursday. Also, the fire department report for September. For the month of September, there were 110 calls for service, 77 rescue EMS calls, none of those requiring Narcan, 12 fire service calls, and 21 people with assist calls. During the month of September, the department's 2 fire trucks completed and passed their annual pump testing. They did do the hydrant audit, began in August and was completed, and also the annual hose testing was begun. Year-to-date report, September 2021. In the third quarter, there have been a total of 1,015 calls for service, an increase of 99 calls from this time last year. All breakdown, there were 621 rescue EMS calls. Of those, 8 required Narcan, 209 fire service calls, and 185 invalid assist calls. Here's our report.
Thank you. Administrative Director, Ms. Bartone, good evening.
good evening. Tonight's agenda is ordinance number 27 for lawn cutting to all repeat offenders. Fire number 1 tonight. Additionally, the safety services open house was on Sunday. 99% of that was organized and planned out by firefighters. And in the end, based on this calculation, we had at least 600 to 700 people here. We had a handful of volunteers. He was able to get some more. It was kind of limited, but it was really well turned out by a lot of the community. We did have the helicopter here and the SWAT built and the bomb squad. It was a really big turnout this year, so we put in a lot of work and a lot of effort.
Thank you. Law Director, Mr. Lyons, good evening.
Good evening. Yes, I have no report.
Questions to administration and department heads at this time? Hearing none, we will move on to board, committee, commission reports, Parks and Rec.
Park and Rec met on September 29th, 2021 at 7 p.m. In attendance was Michelle Moore, Jennifer Jacob, Carol Stepinski, Samantha Wolf, David Shaboo, myself, Dave Eva, Jim Lunder, and Renee Schaefer. The trunk or treat will be at Lake Elementary on October 28th from 5:30 to 6:30. They will have car trunks decorated and students will trick or treat on the grounds. There will be blue bash games and the costume contest. Of course, it's all depending on the weather. The holiday lighting contest will be from December 10th to enter, and the voting will be December 13th to the 17th. There was a discussion on the problems with voting on social media. We discussed the different donations for the contest, and further discussion will be needed. A motion was made and seconded to amend the Park and Rec rules that the meetings will be on the Wednesday after the second council meeting and will begin at 7 p.m. It was passed unanimously. We brainstormed ideas for activities at the new pavilion and for senior citizen program. The next meeting is October 27th, 2021 at 7 p.m.
Thank you. Planning and Zoning Commission. Okay. At this time, we will open this portion to the public. Will you please state your name and address for the record?
I was here last week. I brought a list of the homes that are empty in our neighborhood.
Okay, great. Can I get that from you after the meeting?
Pardon?
Can I get that from you after the meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'd like to thank the city for building the cement walkway to Lake Elementary from the beach. Me and the neighbor in the gray house been taking care of it, running our lawnmower, taking branches, and it was just a muddy mess. Really appreciate it.
They did an excellent job.
Thank you. Anyone online virtually have anything? We will close this portion. We have legislation before council. Resolution number 2021-R-24. Will you read it by its title, please?
Resolution number 2021-R-24. A resolution confirming the appointment of Renee Schaefer to the Parks and Recreation Board.
Motion to suspend?
Motion suspension.
Yes.
I believe it's one of our previous council meetings, we discussed the idea of having a bio chief or something. People wanting these appointments. So that we could see what their intent was and so forth. I know Ms. Schaefer is serving on other committees at this point. But when are we going to start that? Shouldn't that have occurred at this point? No offense, Ms. Schaefer.
None taken.
I think she sent in a letter requesting somebody on, I don't know what the letter was said.
Never got a copy of it.
I didn't either, but I heard that there was a letter sent.
Motion to suspend.
So that's a
Motion made by Mr. Bittner, seconded by Mr. Lunder. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lunder,
all right.
Mr. Bittner,
Aye.
Mr. Shaboo,
Aye.
Mr. Morris,
No.
Mrs. Thompson,
Aye. Motion. This will go to second reading. Ordinance number 2021-0-27. We read it by its title, please.
ordinance number 2021-0-27. An ordinance levying liens for expenses incurred for lawn maintenance and or culvert repairs.
Motion to
So
suspend.
made.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Morris, seconded by Mr. Bittner. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lunder,
Aye.
Mr. Bittner,
Aye.
Mr. Shaboo,
Aye.
Mr. Morris,
Aye.
Mrs. Thompson,
Aye. Motion for passage.
So made.
Seconded.
Motion made by Mr. Morris, seconded by Mr. Shaboo. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lunder,
Aye.
Mr. Bittner,
Aye.
Mr. Shaboo,
Aye.
Mr. Morris,
Aye.
Mrs. Thompson.
Any old business?
Mr. Thompson.
Mr. Morris.
Mrs. Bartun, I'd like to thank you for working on trying to get these meetings recorded so they can be put online. What you're doing through Zoom, I believe.
Fine.
I appreciate that.
Any new business? We have expenditure approval.
Just real quick, Mr. Schaefer is here, if you wouldn't mind maybe addressing council. I know, I appreciate the fact you're volunteering, and I'd like to see you get through tonight.
For that.
Mr. Morris, you have any questions?
No, I don't. But we,
was suggesting mayor that maybe she could give an oral buyout
well,
in lieu of, you know, the written ones that come. And
is that the intent that from here on out, written ones, because I have nothing against Ms. Schaefer at all. I think she's a great lady. It's not that, it's we had agreed on something at a previous meeting and it wasn't followed through.
I don't believe we did agree on that. I think we talked about it, but I don't think, because we decided that people were volunteering, we weren't gonna.
I don't have access to my meetings, so.
I mean, that's my recollection. I thought we just said they're willing to volunteer. Why are we going to even? That's when we
So we know
decided
who
not to
they
do
are.
the 2 reading rule, or the 3 readings.
So I'm not opposed to doing it after we have a bio, but that's not the point. And again, no,
But the mayor and the colleagues go through their applications anyway. It's not like they're gonna,
I'm standing my ground.
that's fine. I think it's bad form for these people that want to volunteer, but
I was merely suggesting to the mayor that the open section would be second open section. If we want to give an oral biography, that would satisfy Paul and the other ones, that if we're still in the same session, and Paul would then want to reconsider his vote. So vote.
I would reconsider my vote on this time only, because I believe it was the intent at that meeting. And if I couldn't look up the minutes and confirm it. Because I have nothing against Ms. Schaefer at all. I don't know her. So, and I do appreciate everybody that volunteers for the different committees. But I also wonder what makes them want to be on these committees, such as, if you, Mayor, you asked me if I had any questions for Renee. May I call you Renee?
Yes,
Why do you want to be on this committee?
well, I've lived here for 10 years. And with all this COVID going on, and I'm in my house because I don't want to go to office and work, I want to be out. in the community. I see what goes on every day in this neighborhood, in the community, what goes on up and down the street. I live right on Sharon Drive right here. I see the police department, I see the neighborhood. I want to get involved. It's time for me to get involved instead of just sitting back and watching.
Do you feel that you have any ideas to bring to Parks and Rec? Fresh
Well,
ideas?
As soon as I understand more what Park and Rec Committee is for, because couldn't find anything online that describes exactly the mission statement for the committee and what all they actually do for the committee.
Good point.
I would like to get involved in any of the committees you guys have that takes volunteers. The mayor suggested a while ago that this would be a good place to start, so that's why I have submitted for this.
I will reconsider my vote this time.
I think you have to make a motion to approve, the motion to reconsider the motion that was turned down, which was the motion to suspend.
Madam President, I wish to reconsider the motion to suspend the rules for appointing Renee Schaefer on resolution 2021-R-24.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Bittner. Roll call or? Roll call.
Mr. Lunder,
Aye.
Mr. Bittner.
Aye.
Mr. Shaboo,
Aye.
Mr. Morris,
Aye.
Mrs. Thompson.
Motion to suspend?
Passage.
Motion for passage.
So made.
Second.
Sorry, motion made by Mr. Morris. Okay. Motion for suspension.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Schaefer.
Motion for suspension, because that was just a motion for suspension.
So made, so made.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Lunder, second by Mr. Morris. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lunder.
Aye.
Mr. Bittner,
Aye.
Mr. Shaboo,
Aye.
Mr. Morris.
Aye.
Mrs. Thompson.
Motion for passage.
So made.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Morris, seconded by Mr. Lunder. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lunder.
Aye.
Mr. Bittner.
Aye.
Mr. Shaboo,
Aye.
Mr. Morris.
Aye.
Mrs. Thompson.
Aye.
Mr. President, can I interject with something? That deals with just what we just did, but also Paul had another suggestion earlier in the meeting. Wanting council to do something. What the heck was it? You said I was puzzled before, now I really am puzzled, but you brought something else up. What that?
Attaching.
Correspondence letters.
Oh, attaching. the
Yes.
letter. Okay, so I remember the discussion about the bio. I don't recall whether or not council took a vote on it.
I think that was a new business.
If council took a vote on it, in terms of that's the way that they wanted that procedure, then council could require that, okay, of acting as a body in order to consider those type of things. A councilman making a request, isn't an order or, or isn't binding on council or the administration. It's only, and I know you all know this, okay, but, it's only when council acts as a body. So if, as Kevin said, going back and taking a look at the minutes, Paul saying that, if it wasn't something that was passed by council, as a motion, in terms of how you wanted to consider future things, then you can proceed however you want. A council person can do what Paul did, okay, and vote not to suspend in order to hold it, do that. But once again, it has to be by everybody in order to establish a rule. And probably, if you're gonna do that, it would be good to have it in a council rule, so that it's written rather than just a temporary going forward. So maybe the time to do those kind of things. Next council. Comes in, they can look at council rules. Thank you. I mean,
Thank you.
I thought, I knew that you brought up another good point, but I couldn't remember it completely because I'm puzzled.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to puzzle.
Under new business, we have an expenditure approval. Magna Grip exhaust removal system. We have a little information.
That is the centralized exhaust removal system for the fire department tank. So when they start the engines,
Pulls it out.
everything else has-
Thank you.
Is that equipping all the bays, like for all the vehicles?
Yes.
Each have them? Nice.
Motion for approval.
So made.
Motion made by Mr. Lunder, seconded by Mr. Bittner. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lunder.
Aye.
Mr. Bittner.
Aye.
Mr. Shaboo,
Aye.
Mr. Morris,
Aye.
Mrs. Thompson.
At this time, we will open this portion to the public. If you please step to the lectern and state your name and address for the record. Do we have anyone online? We'll close this portion. Announcements and settings of meetings. We have the ordinance committee meeting on Monday, October 18th at 6 p.m. Any other meetings?
Park and Rec, October 27th, 7 p.m. Yeah.
So we have ordinance committee on October 18th, 6 p.m., Park and Rec on the 27th at 7 p.m., agenda meeting on the 21st at 6 p.m., regular meeting of council, October 26th at 7 p.m. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So made.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Morris, seconded by Mr. Lunder. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lunder,
Aye.
Mr. Bittner.
Aye.
Mr. Shaboo,
Aye.
Mr. Morris,
Aye.
Mrs. Thompson.
Aye.